The first law of behavior change is to make it obvious. You want the cues of your good habits to be obvious, available, visible, easy to see. The easier it is to see or get your attention, the easier it is to notice, the more likely you are to act on it. The second law is to make it attractive. So the more attractive or appealing or exciting a habit is, the more likely you are to feel motivated to do it. So again, this is about anticipating it, or something you anticipate more, feel more motivated. The third law is to make it easy. The more easy, convenient, frictionless, simple a habit is, the more likely the behavior is to be performed. And then the fourth and final law is to make it satisfying. The more satisfying or enjoyable, pleasurable a habit is, the more likely you are to repeat it in the future. And so those four laws give you like a high level overview of how to build a good habit. So make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, make it satisfying. You don't need all four every single time, but the more that you have those four things working for you, I think the more likely it is that the good behavior will stick, or that you'll find a way to start on it. If you want to break a bad habit, then you just invert those four. So rather than making it obvious, you want to make the cue invisible. Unsubscribe from emails, reduce exposure to the cue. If you're trying to be on a diet, don't follow food bloggers on Instagram. So just, like reducing exposure to the thing that starts the process. Rather than making it attractive, make it unattractive. Rather than making it easy, make it difficult. So increase friction, put more steps between you and the behavior. And rather than making it satisfying, make it unsatisfying. Layer on some kind of immediate consequence or a cost to the behavior. And so those four, make it invisible, make it unattractive, make it difficult, make it unsatisfying, give you a high level framework for how to break a bad habit.
Now, how often is a certain behavior the combination of breaking a habit and creating a habit? Again, it seems like a lot of the ones we default into talking about are the hard ones, like nutrition. We all eat. We're all going to eat all the time. It's not something you can opt out of or into. You just, we all eat. So presumably if a person says, again, I hate coming back to weight because it's such a stupid example relative to, say, overall health, but let's say health, actually. I want to be a much healthier person. So I need to change the way I eat. So that's two things, right? You have to start eating better and stop eating poorer.
It is two things, but I view them as two sides of the same coin. In many cases, we can come up with edge cases or examples where, like the behaviors start to get more specific. But, generally speaking, I think there are three ways to break a bad habit. You can eliminate it entirely. So you can just go cold turkey, cut it out, never do it again. You could curtail the behavior to the desired degree, so you can reduce it a little bit. You still do it sometimes, but you instead of drinking a beer at dinner every night, you just have it maybe once a week. And then you could also replace it. So rather than drinking a beer, you replace it with water or whatever. Now, when I'm thinking about myself personally, when I actually am changing behavior, I don't usually think about breaking bad habits that often. In fact, most of the time I'm focused on building or establishing new good behaviors.
Which necessarily displace the old ones. Like, for example, with eating, it is a bit of a zero-sum game. I mean, not entirely. I guess you could just keep eating more and more and more. But generally, if you say, I'm going to eat more good things, it kind of drives down the bad things. Is that the way it normally works then?
I think a lot of the time it does. And that's why I tend to focus on that for my personal life, is that it's kind of like two plants, like one plant, if it grows a little bit more and, spreads its leaves a little further, it starts to crowd out the other plant, it just soaks up more energy and resources and sunlight. Mm-hmm. And your good habits are kind of like that. I mean, we all, in some sense, it is zero sum in the sense that we only have 24 hours in each day. And so, if you have somebody who says, even if they're unrelated habits, they say, hey, I want to start doing something healthy. I'd like to start, working out for an hour each day. And I also want to watch less TV. I just feel like I watch Netflix too much. Well, if you usually watch Netflix for 3 hours each evening and you decide to insert your workout from 6 to 7 p.m., by definition, you're not watching Netflix while you're doing that. And so, you start to crowd out the bad behavior just by focusing on building workout habit, even if you don't think about the TV thing at all. So my sort of general approach is, look, I'm trying to spend my 24 hours in the highest leverage way possible, the best way possible, the way that is, moving me toward whatever I'm optimizing for. And so let me just try to continually think about how to upgrade those behaviors. I also like that mindset more than the breaking the bad habits one, because it gives me a reason to improve even once I have good habits. Like I'm continually looking for the higher leverage action, even if what I'm doing is already good. Okay, fine. How can I make it great now? And so I tend to focus on that style rather than thinking about breaking bad ones, but they definitely are related, to answer your question.
And I guess like the example that we come back to is smoking. So it's hard to think of, because smoking doesn't really take that much time. So it's hard to say, I'm just going to introduce a new habit that will force smoking out. Are there other examples though of habits where you really do focus on how to break the bad one?
Yeah. So to take the smoking example, I think it's helpful to divide it into the specific instances in which it happens. So, we kind of lump smoking into a single habit, but the truth is it actually might be a collection of like a dozen habits throughout the day. It might be that you have a habit of smoking when you get in your car for the morning commute. And then you also have a habit of smoking around 10:30 when you take a break with your coworker. And then you also have a habit of smoking, after dinner on your porch. And all three of those are going to have their own cue, craving, response, and reward. And so you, in a sense, you kind of have to intervene in like 12 different places to try to come up with a solution for each one of those. So you might find that like for the morning commute, maybe instead of having a cigarette, you come up with something else that you can do on the morning commute while that fulfills that, that desire. Maybe even just a cup of coffee is what wakes you up instead of a cigarette. But that may not work for the 10:30 session with your friend. Maybe there you actually need like an e-cigarette to start because you want to have the socialization of feeling like you're smoking with a friend. So you may need to like kind of take it in different stages and break it down to a degree where it's easier to have a line of attack.
This podcast is for general informational purposes only and does not constitute the practice of medicine, nursing, or other professional healthcare services, including the giving of medical advice. No doctor-patient relationship is formed. The use of this information and the materials linked to this podcast is at the user's own risk. The content on this podcast is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Users should not disregard or delay in obtaining medical advice from any medical condition they have, and they should seek the assistance of their healthcare professionals for any such conditions. Finally, I take conflicts of interest very seriously. For all of my disclosures and the companies I invest in or advise, please visit peterattiamd.com/about, where I keep an up-to-date and active list of such companies.